Good morning. Welcome to Northwest, a Unitarian Universalist congregation. I am Jim Moyer. My pronouns are he, him, and I am your worship associate for this morning's service. We welcome back the Reverend Peter Gable, an ordained Presbyterian minister and a member of Northwest, with us this morning in the pulpit. If you are a visitor online and would like Northwest to stay in touch with you, please fill out the visitor form you will see in the chat box. If you are with us in person, you can fill out the visitor sign-in form out in the atrium. And now, please greet your neighbors with a wave from wherever you are, whether you're here in person or online. And now, before we begin our prelude, let's all take a deep breath and settle into a time of worship. We begin our service today with a land acknowledgement. We collectively acknowledge that Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, the Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi peoples. In particular, the congregation resides on land ceded in the 1807 Treaty of Detroit. We recognize, support, and advocate for the sovereignty of Michigan's 12 federally recognized Indian nations, for historic indigenous communities in Michigan, for indigenous individuals and communities who live here now, and for those who were forcibly removed from their homelands. By offering this land acknowledgement, we pledge ourselves to justice and repair, both with the land and its people. And now a chalice lighting for liminal times. We light our chalice, the symbol of our faith, knowing this morning that many other Unitarian Universalist congregations across The land and around the world are doing the same. We light our chalice with words from the Reverend Summer Al-Bayati. And betwixt and between, we move in the liminal spaces that show shades of what can become, what can be. We light this chalice as a symbol of courage to move into that time of this and that, and not this, and not that, with patience and faith and love and hope that this time will pass, like the sun that moves in between rising and setting, reminding us that beauty resounds in betwixt and in between.
Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
The Heart of Both and by Reverend Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, ever adapting and renewing, we come together this morning with yearnings that do not match. We yearn for stability, for even one moment of feeling like we know what is going on, for the ability to predict and prepare for what is coming next. Yet we also yearn for change. We ache for a world that turns aside from racism, violence, dehumanization, and disregard for suffering. We pray for a change in the illness, grief, isolation, incarceration, and vulnerability in our lives. We reach for connections that will remind us that we are worthy as we are, and we reach for connections that will help us to become our best selves. Hold us in the heart of both and cradle us in mystery. Cherish us in the eternal presence of love and encourage us on the path of growth and development. As individuals and as people, help us become who we are called to be. Lead us to open pathways to deeper wisdom through reconciliation, self-respect, and mutual respect, compassion, owning and making amends for our mistakes. Source of wonder, move us to express and live in gratitude for the beauty of this world, the loving people in our lives, and this day of possibility. To this, we add the meditations of our hearts as we enter into a time of silence.
Please stand as you are willing and able and join us in singing hymn number 1017 in the Teal hymnal, Building a New Way. We are building a new
Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. When that means our world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
One purpose of a religious community is to encourage all who gather together to grow more generous in spirit and action. This is the great end of all the world's faith traditions, to bring the human being closer to the divine by acts of creation and compassion. We now take an offering that allows us to exercise that all-important generosity of spirit, an offering that will mutually support this self-supporting congregation and the shared plate recipient. Every month throughout the year, Northwest shares 50% of the plate collections with the Southfield Emergency Needs Fund. Their goal is to help residents overcome personal hurdles to achieve a satisfying and productive quality of life. Human Services is a division of Southfield Community Relations. If you would like to donate, you can do so in a variety of ways that are now visible on your screen. For those here in person, we will pass a collection basket for checks and cash. And join us in singing hymn number 116, I'm on my way. And some of our choir are going to help us sing, which is probably good.
Yes, this song is sung call and response style. So we'll have the choir and myself sing the regular lyrics, and then you as the congregation shall repeat us singing the italicized lyrics. The one little exception is when it gets to the end, but you'll get there and it'll sound great. I have the utmost confidence in you all.
I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way to the freedom land. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. I ask my sister, come and go with me. I ask my sister, come and go with me. I ask my sister, come and go with me. I'm on my way, great God, I'm on my way. I ask my brother, come and go with me. I ask my brother,
In Between by Reverend Kate R. Walker. In between, liminal, that space where we wait, between moments, events, results, action, no action, to stand on the threshold, waiting for something to end and something new to arrive, a pause in the rumble of time. Awareness claims us, alert, a shadow of something different. In between invitation and acceptance, in between symptom and diagnosis, in between send and receipt of inquiry and question, in between love given and love received. Liminality, a letting go, entering into confusion, ambiguity, and disorientation. A ritual begun, pause, look back at what once was, look forward into what becomes. Identity sheds a layer, reaches into something uncomfortable to wear. In between lighting the match and kindling the oil, in between choosing of text and reading of words, in between voices and notes carried through the air for ears to hear, in between creation thrust ever forward. Social hierarchies may disassemble and structures may fall, communities may revolt or tempt trust, tradition may falter or creativity crashes forward. Leaders may step down or take charge. The people may choose or refuse. In between, storm predicted and horizon beckons. In between, theology of process reminds us to step back. In between, where minutiae and galaxies intermingle with microbes and mysteries. In between, liminal, that space where we wait, look, listen, feel, breathe.
Thank you, Jim. It's always nice to have Jim as my worship associate because then we can greedily raise the lectern by 2 levels, and it works. And I do have to mention how the sermon title came about here. So about a month ago, I had finished my last sermon here, and that afternoon, Ben calls me and says, "I need the topic for the next sermon." For the newsletter. And I said, I have no idea. And then I said, you pick one, and I'll do that. So he chose to be determined and had a little summary of what that might mean, and I said, I'm game. So I like having a topic picked for me. Maybe I'll give others an opportunity to do that. Okay, I'm going to start with a little longer story than I usually use, but I think it's very important to make sort of the basis of what I'm going to be talking about today. So John, the son of one of my oldest friends, is a determined young man. As a child, he mastered the piano through hours of years of practice. John could perform for pay at certain events while still in high school. When he chose a college, he determined that a career in music would not be his goal. Instead, he would be a medical doctor. He would be studying pre-med at a selective liberal arts college on the west side of the state. He was determined to become a doctor. John seemed to be sailing through school in his first couple of years. He left for Scotland during his junior year for a semester abroad. John's parents were unaware that their son had a dangerous secret. Even while John was in his first year of college, other students taught him how to use medication to improve his academic performance. Like some other students he knew, he started maximizing his ability to study by taking amphetamines, stimulants such as Ritalin and Adderall. After a late night studying with the aid of stimulants, John now needed to get to sleep. With the stimulants in his system, he'd take something in the opiate category, often OxyContin and its related opiates. As you can imagine, this steadily got out of control. The cycle of uppers and downers resulted in a full-blown opiate addiction by the time he got on the plane for Scotland. Keep in mind that John's parents thought everything was fine. John's grades were stellar. They had no clue anything was amiss. John boarded the plane for Edinburgh, worried because he hadn't been able to score some oxy before the flight. Worried that he might begin withdrawing while on the aircraft, he obtained a substantial quantity of Tylenol with codeine, the only thing he could get. Throughout the flight, John kept downing the relatively mild Tylenol 3s to keep the withdrawal symptoms at bay. He wasn't concerned enough about the effect of all the toxic acetaminophen on the liver. Acetaminophen can lead to acute liver failure, which may only be treated with an emergency liver transplant. John arrived in Scotland in pretty bad shape and immediately sought medical attention. Without it, he may have died. The addiction continued. His parents didn't even find out about this incident. And he started using heroin because it was cheaper and easier to obtain than prescription drugs. One snowy winter night, I got a call from my friend. John had sought help from a trusted professor who contacted John's father and helped plan how they would safely get John back to the States, where he could receive rehab. Mark drove his car to Chicago to take a red-eye to Scotland and escorted his son back to the airport. They flew back to Detroit from there. My friend had called me to take a flight to Chicago so I could drive his car back home. Things went better for John and his family once he was home. John attended a day program and lived with his parents while recovering. He worked with his dad for a few years, putting off his schooling. He assumed that his dream of becoming a prescribing physician was through, considering his history of drug abuse. So he decided to transfer to Oakland University, finish his undergrad degree, and then enter the physical therapy program, which would terminate in a doctor of physical therapy degree. And that's a way to be in the medical profession and not prescribing opiates. After finishing his physical therapy program, he entered Wayne State's medical school. He didn't know he would be able to do that, but apparently they were satisfied that he'd be okay. He flew through that, including a prestigious internship, and is now a resident in orthopedic surgery at the University of Michigan. But wait, there's another twist to the story. Well into his residency, John started developing unusual symptoms. The main symptom was a wild fluctuation in blood pressure. Very high spikes in his blood pressure might be followed by dramatic drops, which led to fainting. He has not been able to work since last year. He also has various other symptoms of extreme fatigue and various body pains. A trip to the Cleveland Clinic managed a diagnosis of the rare syndrome that causes the debilitating illness. And I know you'd like to know the name of it, but honestly, I have no idea what it is called. The symptoms can be treated, but they don't know how to cure it. People with this illness have found that it eventually goes away in a few years or maybe 10. So John has been determined to be a doctor. If determination alone can make this happen, it will happen. It would have happened. But you know what? Determination is not the only determinant in this ongoing story. In John's story, many determinants were obstacles to John's determination to be a doctor. The fact that he attended Christian schools before heading off to a secular college may have left him unprepared for the different temptations of young adulthood. The easy availability of black market prescription drugs was a determinant. The trip to Scotland, which at the time had a very high level of heroin abuse, was a determinant. And now an unexpected health setback has been a determinant. So the story continues. So this may be a good time for some definitions. I'm using three forms to determine in this sermon. Determine is a verb. It means cause something to occur in a particular way, to be the decisive factor. Here's some examples in sentences. It will be her mental attitude that determines her future. The weather will determine whether we go to the beach or stay home. Our ability to address climate change will determine the planet's fate. And I would add to this that there's probably many more determinants, not all those topics. All right, determine can also be either an adjective or a past tense verb. Determined. I'll be using it as an adjective mostly. A simple definition of determined as an adjective is determination, the quality of being firm in one's purpose. Some examples. Alice was determined to be heard. The soldier was determined to fight for his country, even if it meant dying. The mother was determined to find a cure for her child's illness, no matter how long it took. Finally, for us is the noun form of determinant, a factor that decisively affects the nature of outcome of something. For example, pure force of will was the main determinant of his success. As I first approached preparing for this talk, I was tempted to make it a motivational speech about overcoming obstacles. You can do it. Rah, rah, rah. Well, I don't have anything against motivational speeches. They can be very entertaining. But also they can be a bit deceptive. A typical motivational speech is designed to convince you that you alone can determine the future for yourself. The speaker cleverly bathes you with compliments and exciting examples of the possibilities in front of you. All you need to do is be determined. Well, we know this is not true just by hearing John's story. He is determined. He wants to go back to his work and training. John's will is not the only determinant. There's even a Christian version of the motivational speech. Did you know that? You'll find it most at evangelical churches. They have a little twist to them. So back in my evangelical days of youth, I heard many motivational sermons that were a little different than a secular speech. Merely add an inspiring scripture, for example. So take Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. For those of you who may not know, that's in the Old Testament, one of the prophets, and it's scripture for both Jews and Christians. But those who trust in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not faint. Pretty good. The difference between a religious motivation speech and a secular speech is that the religious speech usually refers to devotion to God or seeking God's guidance as the determinant. Motivational speeches are the sugar rush that lasts until one reaches the first obstacle or the first shiny object. All right, let's talk about what it is to be determined at Northwest UU. Let's talk about how determined we plan to be. Let's talk about the determinants of the future we desire as a congregation. What have we been determined to do for the past 2 years? Right. Hire a full-time settled minister. It appears that our determination was not the only determinant of our ability to find such a person. Other determinants include a shortage of UU ministers, a lack of pizzazz in our location in the country, a real stretch in our ability to pay, and too many other congregations also seeking to hire from the same small pool. A massive amount of work went into this effort. We were determined. After a painful learning experience and the hiring of an interim minister, our search committee got started, spending a great deal of time on necessary paperwork and many surveys and focus groups with members to adequately represent the desires of all of us. The search committee was determined, but other determinants proved more influential. Thank you, members of the search committee, for all your hard work, the hard work you've done. Unfortunately, your hard work was not the decisive determinant. I sensed a substantial amount of disappointment and frustration when we learned we would not be hiring a full-time settled minister. Well, I share your disappointment. We're all used to the traditional model of a single full-time minister who leads the rest of the staff and congregation. Part-timers? Ministers shared with other congregations? This is unknown to us and a bit scary. Will this succeed? What will success look like? Or is this the beginning of a long slide into eventual dissolution? It is to be determined. Are we determined? How determined? Can we get excited about the new possibilities? Well, I let Bard write the answer to this one. Are you familiar with Bard? It's one of the living language models, something like that. Basically, it can write stuff for you. All right, I had to do some editing on this, but here's Bard's contribution. There are several benefits to having a team of part-time ministers rather than one full-time minister. Examples of the possibilities in front of you. Wait. Okay. First, cost savings. Hiring a team of part-time ministers can save a church money, as they will not need to pay for a full-time salary and benefits. This can be especially beneficial for smaller churches with limited budgets. Flexibility. A team of part-time ministers can provide more flexibility for the church, as they can be scheduled to work different hours and days of the week. This can be helpful for churches that need coverage for multiple services or events, or have members with varying work schedules. Specialization. A team of part-time ministers can allow the church to specialize in different areas of ministry. For example, one minister could focus on youth ministry, while another could focus on adult education, or another could focus on the racial issues and Black Lives Matter. This can help the church to serve the needs of its members better. And then there's collaboration. A team of part-time ministers can collaborate with each other to create a more well-rounded ministry. They can share ideas and resources, and they can provide support to each other. This can create a more vibrant and dynamic ministry. Of course, having a team of part-time ministers has some potential drawbacks. For example, it can be more difficult to coordinate schedules and ensure that all ministry needs are met. Part-time ministers may not have the same commitment to the church as full-time ministers. I've heard that from a few people. Ultimately, whether to have a team of part-time ministers or one full-time minister is a complex one that should be made on a case-by-case basis. By the way, Bard has no part of what I'm saying from now on. So there is no one-size-fits-all answer, and the best approach will vary depending on the church's size, budget, and needs. Now, I know we are determined. I've seen how hard so many people have worked to keep the show running and find new professional leadership. We are determined. There's no doubt about that. And now we understand that our determination is not the only determinant for our future. We have many choices to make and many solutions to explore. There are a number of obstacles that a church faces in finding professional leadership, as we've learned. If a church faces any of these obstacles, there are a number of things they can do to overcome them. They can increase their budget. This may mean fundraising or seeking out grants or encouraging people to give a little more. Partner with other churches. This can help to share resources and pool talent. Get creative with their recruitment efforts. This could include using social media, networking, or attending conferences. Anybody, did you meet any potential ministers at GA? No? Manage expectations. Be realistic about what about what the job entails and what the church can offer. Create a positive church culture. This will make the church more attractive to potential candidates. So here we have a list of some of the determinants for our future success, along with some solutions. Let me emphasize the importance of church culture. A kind culture is a key determinant of our future success or failure. Now, my friend Bob Holly objects to the word kindness because questions of kindness are often quite complicated, right? Yeah. But I'll let Bob wrestle with this concept. For most of us, anything we think will be kind probably is, at most times. So, returning to John's story, what have we learned about our experience seeking leaders for our congregation? John was smooth sailing twice before he hit difficult obstacles. After overcoming the addiction obstacle, he reimagined his future and became determined to become a doctor of physical therapy. Then he found a way back on track by studying at Wayne State's College of Medicine. Then he got a great residency at U of M. But now he's hit a new obstacle, a mysterious neurological illness that makes him miserable and unable to work. And I'm convinced that John continues to be determined to finish all his medical training and enjoy a career as a medical doctor. The course of this illness may run 1 more year or 10 more years, but it will take an obstacle far larger than this to keep John from his goal. What will our story be? Will we remain determined? Will we keep raising our kindness factor through these difficult times? How creative will we be? How much can we increase our revenue and thus increase our budget for professional staff? These and other determinants must be addressed to overcome the obstacles and to move forward. Now we will please stand as you're willing and able to join together in singing hymn number 1020, Woyaya.
We are going
The chalice extinguishing, all that we have been, all that we will become, by Reverend Leslie Ahuva Fales. All that we have been separately and all that we will become together is stretched out before and behind us like stars scattered across a canvas of sky. We stand at the precipice, arms locked, together like tandem skydivers working up the courage to jump. Tell me, friends, what have we got to lose? Our fear of failure? Our mistrust of our own talents? What have we got to lose? A poverty of the spirit? The lie that we are alone? What wonders await us in the space between the first leap and the moment our feet, our wheels, however we move our bodies across the precious earth, touch down on unknown soil? What have we got to lose that we can't replace with some previously unimaginable joy? Blessed are you, Spirit of life, who has sustained us, enlivened us, and enabled us to reach this moment. Give us courage in our leaping and gratitude in our landing, and share with us in the joy of a long and fruitful ministry together. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, our announcements. More information about our events and the congregation are posted in the weekly newsletter and on our website, northwestuu.org. As always, you are invited to join us for coffee, tea, and refreshments in the multipurpose room. We will have Celebration of Life service for Ken Hermanot at Northwest on Sunday, July 9th, that's next week, at 12:30 p.m., officiated by Reverend Teresa Rolk from First UU Ann Arbor. The memorial service for Margot Julian will take place on Saturday, July 29, 10:30 a.m. at Allegria Village in Dearborn. And our Peace Camp Committee will be collecting items to donate to the Ruth Ellis Center Detroit as this year's service project. The Ruth Ellis Center has established a national reputation for quality and innovation in providing trauma-informed services for lesbian, gay, bi-attractional, transgender, and questioning youth and young adults, with an emphasis on young people of color experiencing homelessness, involved in the child welfare system, and or experiencing barriers to health and well-being. So the kind of supplies they're going to be trying to get include toothpaste, body wash, soap, shampoo and conditioner, deodorant, pads and tampons, Kleenex, bottled water, and non-perishable food items. And the deadline to drop off is Sunday, July 16th. It looks like our chalice extinguished itself, which is fortunate because I forgot. And now we're going to have our postlude with Alex.